military's execution of opponents, ASIN troubled. Long-awaited bridge bypassing Bosnia opened by Croatia. Sunak Truss contest in first debate as United Kingdom leadership race heats up. Rights groups disturbed over Nepal intention to amend war crime laws. On the desk with me, Lois Turaki. Many thanks for joining us. On tonight's news, military government's execution of 4. On Monday, Myanmar declared it had hung Fuzia Thaw, a former legislator from Aung San Suu Kyi's National League for Democracy. The hangings were the first since 1989 and drew outrage from across the world. Cambodia said ASIN was extremely troubled and deeply saddened by the men's executions in a statement dated July 25th, noting that the group of nations had called for the sentences to be reconsidered while Cambodian Prime Minister Hun Sen had made a personal appeal for clemency. Noting ASIN ministers will meet next week for their summit, the statement said the timing was highly reprehensible as it created a setback to and presents a gross lack of will to support the effort in building trust and confidence to engender a dialogue in order to end violence and alleviate the suffering of innocent people. ASIN and Myanmar, which has been a member of the group since 1997, agreed to a 5-point consensus to end the violence stoked by the military's February 2021 coup in April of the same year. The military has shown no willingness to implement the measures, and military-appointed ministers have been bound rather from attending ASIN events. The death toll in the military's crackdown its opponents has since mounted beyond 2,000 and many more have been arrested. The United Nations and rights groups say the military, which already faces genocide charges over its crackdown on the Muslim Rohingya in 2017, has committed war crimes since seizing power. Myanmar has also refused to allow ASIN officials to see imprisoned Linda Aung San Suu Kyi despite their repeated requests. Noli Heza, the United Nations Secretary General Special Envoy on Myanmar, is currently in Malaysia and held a press conference with Malaysia's Foreign Minister Saifuddin Abdullah on Tuesday. Croatia has opened a long-awaited bridge connecting its southern Adriatic coast, including the popular tourist destination of Dubrovnik, with the rest of the country by passing a narrow strip of Bosnian territory. The 2.4 kilometers, 1.5 mile span ranges out from the Croatian mainland to the Paljesak Peninsula that links the southern part of Croatia's coastline nestled between the sea and the Dinaric Alps. On Tuesday, the opening of the bridge comes as Croatia is as it hopes to attract pre-pandemic levels of visitors. The link will bring an end to the untold hours spent by commuters, merchants and tourists at the Bosnia and Herzegovina border, and is one of the country's most ambitious infrastructure projects since the country declared independence from Yugoslavia in 1991. However, the bloody dissolution of the federation left a patchwork of divisions across the Balkans, with the frontiers between its 6 former republics transformed into international borders. Bosnia maintained its coastal access in the end, but its still small outlet leading to the Adriatic Sea cut right through Croatia. Approximately 90,000 people, including residents in Dubrovnik, remained cut off from the rest of the country until now as a result. The hard border brought lines and red tapes for traders and headaches for tourists hoping to get south by road. On politics, the last 2 candidates vying to become the United Kingdom's next Prime Minister have gone ahead to engage in a debate clashing over the state of the economy, including each other's tax and spending plans. On Monday, the primetime duel between Foreign Secretary Liz Truss and former Finance Minister Rishi Sunak kicked off a crucial 12-day period featuring 3 such live debates and 4 hosting events who will decide the contest and begin receiving their postal votes next week. The weeks-old Tory leadership contest to replace outgoing Prime Minister Boris Johnson has turned increasingly bitter, with both camps butting heads. Truss, the bookmaker's favorite to win the leadership election, told Sunak his emphasis on balancing the government books will tip the economy into recession. Sunak, whose resignation from the government earlier this month set in motion Johnson's downfall, said Truss's intent to cut taxes was nothing more than a sugar rush for the economy that will be followed by a crash. The final stretch of a weeks-long contest has pit Sunak, a former Goldman Sachs banker who has raised the tax burden towards the highest level since the 1950s, against Truss, a convert to Brexit, who has pledged to cut taxes and regulation. On September 5th, whoever wins when the result is announced will inherit some of the most difficult conditions in Britain in decades. Inflation is on course to hit 11% annually, growth is stalling, industrial action is on the rise, and the pound is near historic lows against the dollar. Nepal risks letting wartime atrocities committed during the Himalayan kingdom's Maoist rebellion go unpunished with long-delayed reforms to its transitional justice laws, rights groups have said. Both security forces and former rebels have been accused of carrying out torture, killings, rapes and forced disappearances during Nepal's decade-long civil war, which ended in 2006 with over 13,000 people dead. Authorities have been criticized for failing to adequately probe abuses, with 2 commissions set up for that purpose in 2015, failing to resolve a single case between them in spite of over 60,000 complaints. The government this month presented a bill to amend existing laws relating to war criminals, 7 years after the Supreme Court ordered revisions to stop grave human rights violators from being granted amnesty. Amnesty, Human Rights Watch and other international watchdogs in a joint statement said the proposed amendments will still make it difficult or impossible to prosecute the worst offenders. Numerous other aspects of the proposed reforms, including restriction on the right to appeal, also fell short of international standards, according to the joint statement. On business and economy, U.S. and Taliban officials have discussed proposals for the release of billions of dollars from Afghan central bank reserves held abroad into a trust fund. 3 sources familiar with the talks said, according to reports, given a hint of improvement in attempts to relieve Afghanistan's economic crisis. However, according to 2 of the sources, important alterations between the sides remain, including the Taliban's refusal to replace the bank's top political appointees, one of whom is under U.S. sanctions, as are several of the movement's leaders. Some professionals said such a move will aid reinstate confidence in the institution by shielding it from intrusion by the armed group that seized power a year ago, but which foreign governments do not recognize. A Taliban government source who spoke on condition of anonymity said while the Taliban do not discard the concept of a trust fund, they oppose a U.S. proposal for third-party control of the fund that will hold and disburse returned reserves. According to a U.S. source who also declined to be named to deliberate on the matter, said the United States has been in discussions with Switzerland and other parties on the creation of a mechanism that will include a trust fund, disbursements from which will be decided with the support of an international board. A possible model could be the Afghanistan Reconstruction Trust Fund, a World Bank-administered fund created to get donations of foreign development assistance to Kabul, the U.S. source added. The U.S. State Department and Switzerland's Federal Department of Foreign Affairs declined to comment. The Afghan Central Bank did not respond to requests for comment. Some $9 billion in reserves have been seized outside Afghanistan, including $7 billion in the United States since the Taliban overran Kabul last August, as U.S.-led forces withdrew after 20 years of battling the group. Foreign governments and right groups have accused the Taliban of human rights abuses, including extrajudicial killings during and after the insurgency, and the movement has truncated women's freedoms since regaining power. The international community wants the group to improve its record on women's and other rights before officially recognizing it. The Taliban have sworn to investigate alleged killings and said they were working to secure Afghans' rights to education and free speech within the perimeters of Islamic law. On more stories, European Union ministers deliberate gas cuts as Gazprom tightens squeeze. European Union energy ministers are gathering to deliberate on emergency proposal requiring member states to cut their gas use by 15% from August to March in the face of worries about the reliability of Russian supplies in the coming winter. On Monday, Gazprom, Russia's state-controlled gas giant, announced it was stopping the operation of one of the last two operating turbines of the Nord Stream 1 pipeline due to the technical condition of the engine. Deliveries to Europe via the pipeline were to be reduced to 33 million cubic meters a day, about 20% of its capacity, from Wednesday. Last year, Russian gas accounted for 40% of the EU's imports of the energy source. Concerns in the bloc over energy supplies, especially gas, have added as Russia reduced deliveries in recent months amidst the war in Ukraine, seen as retaliation for Western sanctions. On Tuesday, European Union Energy Policy Chief Kadri Simpson said Gazprom's announcement was politically motivated. And last week, Russian President Vladimir Putin said Gazprom has always fulfilled and will fulfill all of its obligations, adding that our partners are trying to shift the blame for their own mistakes to Gazprom without any basis. It is hard. In his nightly video address on Monday, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelinsky accused Moscow of using restrictions in gas supply to inflict what he called terror on Europe and urged the EU to agree tougher sanctions against Russia. The draft proposal put forward by the European Commission last week projected voluntary targets, but the EU's executive branch could make them binding in a supply emergency. The idea that Brussels could impose cuts on national economies was opposed by several EU members, including Greece, Italy, Poland, Portugal, and Spain. In Africa, amidst rising conflict, protesters demand United Nations troops to leave Democratic Republic of Congo. Protesters have set fires and forced entry into the United Nations mission facilities in the Democratic Republic of Congo's eastern city of Goma, asking that the peacekeeping forces leave the country amidst rising insecurity in the region. Hundreds of people blocked roads and chanted anti-United Nations slogans on Monday from breaking into the headquarters of the UN peacekeeping mission in Goma, a significant commercial hub of North Kivu province. The demonstrators shattered windows and looted computers, furniture, and other valuables from the headquarters, according to reports, while UN police officers fired tear gas in a bid to push them back. Helicopters airlifted some UN officials from the overrun headquarters. The United Nations peacekeeping mission in the DRC, known as MONUSCO, has come under regular local criticism for its perceived inability to halt fighting in the conflict-torn east. Over 120 armed groups journey the volatile region where civilian massacres are common and conflict has displaced millions of people. Ahead of Monday's protest, the Goma Youth branch of the ruling UDPS party released a statement demanding MONUSCO withdraw from Congolese soil without conditions because it has already proved its incapacity to provide us with protection. The Deputy Special Representative of the UN Secretary General to MONUSCO, Kassim Diani, stated after the protest that the incidents in Goma are not only unacceptable but totally counterproductive, adding that the peacekeepers were in the region to protect civilians. The rebels have since made substantial advances in eastern Congo, including capturing the North Kivu town of Bunagana and the Ugandan border. The UN first deployed an observer mission to East Congo in 1999. It became the peacekeeping mission MONUSCO, the United Nations Organization Stabilization Mission in the Democratic Republic of Congo in 2010, with a dictate to conduct offensive operations. According to the United Nations, presently it has a strength of about 16,300 uniformed personnel, and there have been since 230 fatalities among them. Said supporters celebrate fresh constitution record low turnout. Some Tunisians have started celebrating a win for the yes vote in a constitutional referendum brought by President Kais Saied, despite the election authorities saying only about a quarter of registered voters had turned out. An exit poll from Sigma Council, a Tunisian polling company, said 92.3% of voters had backed the new constitution, which opponents say will entrench one-man rule. Only 7.7% voted no out of some 9 million registered voters. Just 1.9 million people came out to vote, with the opposition majorly choosing to boycott the vote. An assembly of 100 people crowded in Tunis Municipal Theatre to sing and chant popular slogans while cars circled Avenue Habib Bourguiba, which saw the final chapter of the 2011 uprising that overthrew the authoritarian president Zine Abidine Ben Ali and began the Arab Spring. They were later joined by Said himself, who gave speeches and answered questions from local and international press. Said addressed his supporters in central Tunis in the early hours of Tuesday morning after a walkabout and appeared sure that his constitution had been approved, referring to the referendum day as an historic moment. His supporters are expecting radical change, if not miraculous solutions, to the economic strife that has fueled demonstrations and strikes in Tunisia. Said, who has been ruling by decree for a year, has already amassed significant power, removing the parliament and sacking dozens of justices. Still ahead, Macron visits Cameroon to improve France's impact in the region. Emmanuel Macron, French president, arrived late on Monday evening in Cameroon at the commencement of a three-nation tour of Western Africa. It's his first foreign trip since his re-election, as he seeks to reboot France's post-colonial relationship with the continent. Cameroonian Prime Minister Joseph Dion Ngouts was at the airport to receive him. Macron is due to hold meetings Tuesday morning at the presidential palace with his counterpart Paul Biya, 89, who has ruled Cameroon with an iron fist for nearly 40 years. The two leaders will discuss security in Cameroon, which has been riven by ethnic violence and an insurgency by Anglophone separatists who have been fighting for independence for two English-speaking provinces since 2017. Northern Cameroon has also seen attacks by Boko Haram jihadists. On Wednesday, Macron travels to Benin, followed by Guinea-Bissau on Thursday. And finally, Sergei Lavrov bolstered Congolese president about wheat. After Egypt, Russia's foreign minister Sergei Lavrov traveled to Congo, where he met President Denis Sassou Nguesso on Monday to deliberate diplomatic cooperation and reassure the Congolese leader about wheat exports. Referring to the recent bombing of the port of Odessa, Lavrov explained the target was military infrastructure. For the Congolese authorities, who have taken a neutral stance on the conflict, the recent UN and Turkey-sponsored deal to permit maritime traffic in the Black Sea is good news. We are pleased to welcome Sergei Lavrov, who comes with good news, including this agreement that was signed in Turkey, sponsored by the United Nations and Turkey, which should revive the marketing of Ukrainian wheat across the Black Sea and through the Bosphorus Strait, said Congolese Foreign Minister Jean-Claude Kagoso. After Congo, Sergei Lavrov heads to Uganda and Ethiopia. And that's it on international news this Tuesday. I am Lois Jiraiki. Keep smiling, because life is a beautiful thing and there is so much to smile about. Thank you for the privilege of your time. Have a good night.